Hey guys, happy Wednesday, and I got the day right. Welcome to the Trish Lynn Show. Today we are talking about limiting identities and limiting beliefs, and this is going to be I think I say this about every episode, but such an awesome conversation to jump into because it is one of my favorite things to talk about, especially after a toxic relationship, getting to decide who you want to be moving forward. So, really excited for this conversation. And it looks like our guest is here. Let's see if we can bring her up. Nicole, you might have to request to join. We'll see what happens. Usually the invite never works for me. There we go. It worked.
Oh, how are you?
How are you?
Oh my gosh, I was like trying to get all my situation going with my light and everything. I'm
My ring
excited.
light decided to die on me the other day, so that's always fun.
Isn't that the worst?
Yeah.
I am in this like little office. It's so dark today because it's cloudy out. So if I don't have a ring light, it's gonna be a hot mess.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. Until the sun's on the opposite side of the house right now, and until it comes around, my room is so dark.
Oh, well, I'm excited to be
I'm
here.
excited to have you. I just announced the topic and then we started talking. So I'd love for you to just introduce yourself, let everyone know what you're about and what you do, and we can dive into this topic because I think you caught the beginning where I said I'm excited to dive into this, especially when you've been in a toxic relationship, like coming out this other side. You're not, and I've said this so much, I think this week, you're not who you were prior to that relationship, but now you have a foundation of who you want to be and who you get to be moving forward. So super excited for this topic. I'll let you come on and introduce yourself, let everyone know what you're about and what you do, and then we can dive in.
Well, again, thank you for having me. For anybody who's not familiar with me, I'm Nicole Frazier. I'm a certified mindset coach. I'm a certified EFT practitioner. I consider myself to be a fired up coach as far as Christianity goes. I interweave that into everything that I do with my clients. It's a total marriage of faith and science. They are not mutually exclusive. They work beautifully together. And when you work with me, I take you through a really unique signature framework where everything that we do is focused on mindset, scripture, and strategy. So we don't compartmentalize Jesus. We bring him into the business. We bring him into the strategy. We focus on scripture to up level our mindset. And yeah, I see we have some Jesus fans, some brothers and sisters down there. So happy to be in the room with you today.
I love that. I was actually raised Catholic, and I don't want to say I fell away from the church, but I fell away from the church. But at the same time, I still believe in, something bigger than me.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it goes deep into Jesus, it's still something bigger than me. And I love that because I still bring that into everything that I do. And it's beautiful.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And I always say, as somebody who's raised Catholic as well, but like I'm deeply into the word and everything. And I feel like that sometimes is missing in Catholicism. But I feel like we always have to just be mindful. There's just a little disclaimer that that's the tool of the enemy to keep people separate, or to make people feel like, the church is this, and like, so that means I have to, I don't jive with that,
Yeah,
right? It's causing that division, and it's just keeping that barrier between you and God. So always be
yeah,
mindful of that.
for sure, for sure. I love watching everyone join on. You guys, when you join on, say hi, let us know that you are here. Give us some hearts, all of the things, and jump in the conversation. Do not be afraid to join in, especially around this topic, because I think I'm going to have some questions that come up and I'm going to want some answers from our audience. So, limiting identities, limiting beliefs, we can dive so deep into this that I'm not even sure where to start. So maybe I'll let you take the lead and I'll get to sit back and just share my experience.
Well, I gotta say Hi to Ariel down there, Limitless Lioness. She's my girl. Why don't we frame this, Trish, around the toxic relationship theme,
Yes.
if you would like, since that's something that is big in your work.
Yeah.
Um, I personally went through a crazy toxic relationship in my 20s, 6.5 years. And this is how, on being on the other side of that, now I'm about to have my 15-year wedding anniversary to an amazing person. Um, your mindset is what allowed me, or what
Yeah.
allowed me to even fall into that uh,
Yeah.
that toxic
Yeah.
relationship, right? And a lot of times we don't realize that, because if I step into my 21-year-old body back then, I didn't think I had any issues with my mindset. I didn't think I felt like I had a lower sense of self-esteem or anything like that. But being on the other side of that and doing the kind of work, like deep mindset work, I'm like, I absolutely had to believe that about myself, and believe that this was acceptable,
Yeah.
and believe that putting up with certain behaviors was okay and worth it,
Yeah.
right? For me to continue in that. And looking back at that woman, that girl that I was, I'm like, how the heck, girl, did
And
you
I like that you
ever?
just said to continue in that. So for me, my ex and I got together when I was just 19.
Yeah.
So I think I turned 19. Oh, well, I know I turned 19 the beginning of June. And then by the end of August, beginning of August, him and I were together. So I was just 19. And I was a very confident person. And, I don't think back to the self-worth piece. I haven't actually even thought about that. But it was something for me that you grow into, and you don't even realize it's happening. Then all of a sudden you're in this space, and you've allowed so much to just continue to go on, and you allowed your mindset to allow it to continue to go on.
Yeah.
And I love that we were talking about this, because it was mindset that got me into it. It was mindset that got me out.
Mm,
And
awesome.
I share that all of the time. I started doing the mindset work 2-ish years before I finally left, because of the toxic cycle. You'd leave, go back, leave, go back, leave, go back. I knew that if I was going to leave and stay gone, I had to do the work on me so that I could leave and stay gone.
Yeah. And that, I give you so much credit for going through that journey. And I wish that I could say that about myself. I kept going back and going back. And literally in my life, God kept giving me the signs. I kept praying for the signs that I should leave. He kept giving them to me. And then he had to like hit me over the head with a brick. And he had to close that door in a way that it couldn't be reopened. So I give you kudos for doing the work. And I feel like it's, if you can get yourself to that place, if you're in a toxic relationship and start to do the work and start to believe, like, this is who I am, this is what I believe is value, I'm
Yeah.
worthy of, this is how I want my life to go. We have that power, and the key is getting out of our own head
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, and I mean, I asked for signs. I still literally remember this day. I asked the universe for a sign of, what am I supposed to do?
Mhm.
And that night there was a massive argument. My phone was smashed. My iPad was smashed right in front of my kids. I obviously gathered them and left, took my dog with me, went to a friend's house. She took me out to get a new phone, and I went to our first stop was the liquor store. And that's when I realized he took my debit card and my credit card out of my wallet before I left. Now, this was all around dinner time, so I couldn't even feed my kids that well. I couldn't feed them. My girlfriend ended up buying them dinner for me. And that was a sign, and I ignored the sign and kept going. But eventually I started listening to the signs. So it's starting to recognize, one, if you ask for the sign and it's there, listen to it. That's a very good piece of advice I can share with everyone who's listening in, because it will continue to show up, and you will continue to get the signs until you do finally listen to it. But it's starting to recognize, hey, I am worthy of more than how I am being treated.
Yeah.
I am deserving of a life that isn't full of conflict and walking on eggshells. My feelings deserve validation. And
Yeah.
all of these pieces that I started recognizing. And I started, I learned about gaslighting. And then all of a sudden we're sitting there and I'm like, hmm, and I silently, that just happened. Okay, then. And you get to start picking up on all of these pieces.
Yeah. So this is to like bring it back to our topic, right? And the gaslighting is like so plays a part in this, right? And this is my message to all women, all men are in these kinds of
Yes, they
situations
are.
too. If you don't have a strong understanding of who you are going to be at risk
Mhm.
for somebody else telling you
Yeah.
who you are, right? And that's how limiting identities can end up being formed. So in neuroscience, right, the way that a limiting belief is formed in our minds is, and a lot of limiting beliefs form when we're really, really young,
Yeah.
before the age of 7, because uh, right around the age of 7 or 8 is when our brain develops the ability to uh, say, I don't believe that,
Yeah.
right? You don't have that critical faculty before that. That's why usually up until around ages 7 or 8, kids still believe in Santa Claus, because they will believe what you tell them.
Yeah.
They're like, this is what they're telling me, I'm accepting it as truth. So when we're going through that time in our life, we're like this big sponge, literally, like, and we are just in a theta brainwave state. We are just accepting and absorbing information. So we might hear our parent say something about us, right? Oh, Nicole is shy. Um, she, you know, Johnny's not good at sports. His sister's the athletic one, right? And now that's like, it goes into your mind
Yeah.
and you accept it. And now you start to like look for evidence to support that.
Yeah.
So if you bring it back to relationships, you might hear,
Yeah.
sense tension in the family. You might sense a parent not being really confident,
Yeah.
accepting behavior that maybe isn't the healthiest kind of thing. And it's all going into your mind. So now, as you go through life, like I said, you're looking for evidence to back that
Yeah.
up. And now one limiting belief starts to couple with another limiting belief about yourself. And then it's like almost by the time you get out of your teens and into your 20s, any of these limiting things
Yeah.
start to roll into like how you see yourself and what you believe about the world. And you probably never spent any amount of time diving deep and identifying that. But make no mistake, that's how you're showing up in the world. And when you have that on the inside, you can't fake that. Anybody around you, i.e., somebody that's going to be your toxic partner,
Yeah.
they have this innate sense, this innate ability to be like, I am going to be able to manipulate this person.
Yep.
And they can like, and sometimes they're not even consciously aware of it, but they start out by throwing out a little thing and like, how's she going to take that? And then they're like, oh, that's the evidence that I
Yeah.
need that I can continue down this path. So again, what I like to, what I truly believe is that God brought you into this world as this amazing freaking person. He gave you everything that you need. You lack nothing for your purpose here on
No.
earth. So any of these limiting identities, limiting thoughts, beliefs that you've adopted, they are not inherently of you.
No.
So you don't have to walk forward in life believing anything less about yourself. And just like how you chose to accept that belief and walk forward, you can let go of that belief with deep mindset work, with leaning back onto God and get back to who you truly freaking are. And
Yeah.
it is the most powerful version of you. And it feels like you're so at home with
Yeah.
yourself because you're like, this is actually
Yeah.
me. That girl, that wasn't me. I could see that. So that's a little bit about how that stuff
Well,
works.
and I love, as love that you say, from such a young age, and thinking back to my me, I lost my dad when I was
Mm,
9. Prior to losing my dad and my mom were separated. My dad had a girlfriend. My dad had a lot of the traits that I ended up with in my relationship. So at that age, and I've never actually compared. I knew I was breaking a generational pattern leaving. I knew that. But to actually sit and look at that and the things that, subconsciously I would have picked up on that I didn't even realize I had picked up on and I deemed acceptable
yeah.
in my marriage. And even now, I joined a mastermind last summer and I was sharing some of my experiences, and the ladies were like, hold on, that is not normal. And for me, that was normal.
Mm,
I saw this growing up. I saw this in my marriage. That was just a normal, acceptable behavior,
yeah.
not a normal behavior. And it's learning and being able to now putting those pieces together. It's really interesting, but it's being able to notice what one isn't acceptable for you, but how you want to move forward from that.
Absolutely. Um, hello to Fawad down there. God is great all the time. I see you, my friend. I too saw similarities, major similarities between my dad and my ex. And it's weird because you don't notice it in your dad because you're not in a relationship with your dad. Right. So, but going forward, I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
this was my dad. And even though I have an amazing relationship with my dad, I'm like, again, he's not my romantic partner. Um,
exactly. Yeah,
so it's very, very scary. And I always like to say to people, like, I don't know if you ever had this experience, Trish, but it's almost like your body knows before your brain knows. And it's like my ex would do something and it's like I'd get this like drop in my stomach that like this this isn't right. Or like it would just bring my attention that like, oh,
yeah,
like and I remember like when I walked away being like, I don't want to ever be with somebody that makes my stomach drop again
yeah.
and makes me have that like horrible feeling that like this isn't right kind of thing.
Our intuition's always leading us.
Mm-hmm.
And after, so my relationship was 16 years of my life. And like even now moving forward, learning to trust myself again, learning to listen to my intuition, because for me, yeah, it was guiding me this whole
Yeah.
way, but for 16 years I didn't listen to it. Maybe not the whole 16 years, because like I said, like I started paying attention to the patterns. I started recognizing when things were going to come up. I knew I was walking on eggshells, but I had to mentally get myself to the space where I could leave and actually stay gone. And yeah, it's that gut feeling of, oh shit, here we go again.
Yeah. And we are really motivated um, by like pain and pleasure. And a lot of times when we are in situations like this, we have a pain and pleasure mix up.
Yeah,
And so basically, what's happening in your brain is we are associating there to be greater pain with leaving than with
yeah,
staying. The leaving, that unknown, what is my life going to look like? It's like you almost get like addicted in certain ways to the
yeah.
drama.
You
And
do.
it's,
Your body, it's that cycle, right? Your body does. It's the trauma bond. Your body gets addicted to that cycle, and the hormones in your body get addicted to that cycle. So you crave that
yeah,
cycle, and breaking it is a hard cycle. I remember when I left, I had someone say, like, my first relationship, he's like, I'm not going to be that dramatic person. I'm like, I don't want that. Like, I've been there, done that. I don't want it. Well, you're used to it. Yeah. I've also done a lot of work so that I don't need that in my life
yeah,
anymore.
because it is a real thing. And that's what, so you used the perfect term, that trauma bond. So basically, in mindset work, one of the things that we're always working to do is to sort of rewrite that neural pathway,
Yeah.
right? Because every time you create a thought, you adopt a belief. You
Yeah.
think of your brain as like a piece of wood. right? You're like carving a little path
Yeah.
so that every time this thought comes up, it's like, okay, I believe it in this way, and now it's going to trigger this emotion, and your brain, loves to get stuck in a loop, and you just keep going on in that way. And once your brain figures out how to do something and how you do something, it's always going to want to revert to doing it that same way over and over and
Yeah.
over again. So now, but it's not a permanent thing.
No.
You can actively work to change that pattern. So it's a lot of the work that I do with clients is identifying what are our limiting beliefs?
Yeah.
How are they rolling up into a limiting identity? And what are now the habits and the patterns and the behaviors that we're falling into that are not supportive of who we actually want to be, how we want to show up in life, what we want our business to look like, our relationships to look like, and we unravel that and in really active, dynamic
Yeah.
ways, session by session, so that you can move forward more powerfully.
Yeah, exactly. I do the same work because after that toxic relationship, it is the most important piece. And like, you will probably agree with me on this part. That work is more important than any strategy that you throw out there. Because
Yeah.
if you are not behind yourself in the work that you are putting out, it doesn't matter what strategy you are utilizing, you're not going to see those results that you're aiming for.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
What people don't realize is you bring you to every situation. So it doesn't matter if the strategy changes, if you're trying to force things with habit, right? That is not how actual change happens. Because anytime you just try to dive in on habits, right? We have something, it looks like an inverted funnel. It's called the logical levels of change in your mind. I actually have like a little thing I always like hold up here. So at the top is purpose,
Yeah.
right? That's like your spiritual thing. Then it's identity, values, beliefs, potential, behaviors and habits, and environment. So most people are trying to change and they're working with behavior, but behavior is only tied to willpower. And willpower, we only have so much every single day and it
Yeah.
runs out. So when that willpower runs out, right, in a relationship, when you're like, I'm not going to do this anymore, I'm not going to be like this, right? When it's the end of the day and you're tired and you're beat down from having the same little stupid argument over and over again,
Yeah.
what do you revert to? You revert back to who you actually believe you are.
Yeah.
So in mindset work, we're attacking it at the identity level, because when how you see yourself changes, then what you value naturally changes.
Yeah.
What you believe about yourself naturally changes. What you believe about your potential naturally changes. And then you start to do your behaviors and your habits differently, because you're like, well, if I believe I'm this kind of person, I don't do this, right?
Yeah.
Like for a health and wellness example, if I believe I'm like a healthy, fit person who values my health and wellness, no, I don't go to McDonald's. I go, and get a
Exactly.
salad,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So it's fascinating freaking work that I feel like more people need to tap into, because like you said, you can't just focus on strategy, because the strategy keeps failing because you're in the strategy.
Yeah. You are 100% a part of your strategy. Yeah. It's I couldn't say that any better myself, and it's the exact same thing that I would be saying. So I'm just like, now what do I say? Because it is such like that is the work. You are the work, and 90%, 90 or 95% of your day is run on autopilot by your thoughts that are triggering those emotions. So it's bringing that level of self-awareness to the forefront of your day and acknowledging, this is not how I want to react, and starting to respond in a way that matches the identity that you are creating for yourself.
Yeah. And we do such similar work. The thing I add in there, I would say, like in my approach, is like, get your eyes on freaking Jesus first thing in the morning, right? Because that's before you're like who am I? What are my problems? How am I attacking this day? If you keep it at your purpose,
Yeah.
first and foremost, what am I here to do? That is going to be like your guiding light. And I feel like beyond mindset work, people are chasing and focusing on the wrong things in life, and that's always going to lead you down the path of destruction, and God's always going to be looking to pull you back to him and be like, I'm going to allow you to keep going down these paths because you're looking to solve the wrong problem.
Yeah, I like to, like, when I wake up, I will lay. I'm not going to sit up in bed. I lay in bed and I think about three things that I'm grateful for just to get
Yes.
my day going in that positive direction. Just simple little mindset shifts and recognizing things that I'm even saying now and how I'm wording it.
Mm-hmm.
And those little pieces are so important. You know, if you say, I wish I was, or I wish I could, let's shift that to I
Yeah.
can and I am. And,
So
and things get to move and they start shifting for you.
you like hit the nail on the head because our mind is always listening,
Mhm.
right? And your words, your life follows your words. So first, it's like what you're focusing on creates what you're going to think about. How you think, what you're thinking about is going to create the emotions that you're feeling, and then your feelings are going to drive your actions. So getting grateful first thing in the morning is going to get you focused on the right
Yeah.
thing so that you're thinking positive thoughts. And I think, I'm sure you find this too. People think mindset work is like totally just react, like I did the mindset work, now I can just go on about my day. Like, no, this is an
Yeah.
active process, and you have to actively and multiple times throughout the day bring awareness to what am I thinking about,
Yeah.
and like get your mind going in the right direction. Just because you think the thought doesn't make it true. So you need to be like, wait a minute, what the heck am I thinking about? What are the words I'm using? I'm so tired, I'm lazy. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't do this. I can't. It's like you're using all the wrong words. You need to speak life over yourself, speak life over your situation, because that is going to activate the thoughts, the emotions that drive how you're showing up in every moment.
And one thing I've started doing, and I share this with everyone I talk to, including my mother, because every time someone says, I have to do this, I'm like, no, 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 you don't have to do anything. You get to. You get to do laundry. You get to go get groceries. I caught myself yesterday, like, oh, I have to go do this. I'm like, no, wait a second. I get to go get this.
Yeah.
I get to go to Walmart and get the mix to make my chai latte. Like, and then I almost stopped at Starbucks anyways to get it because I didn't want to come home and make it. But you know,
Yeah.
it's the things, the little things that you know we take for granted because we get to do it. There are some people who don't get to do laundry. They don't get to have a shower. They don't get to eat dinner. They don't get to just go for groceries. We get to do these things. And if you can reframe it again, the energy of, well, I have to go do this. That's like such a low
Yeah.
energy. I get to go get this is such a higher energy. And when you can focus on that, not only are you shifting your mindset of who you are because you get to do these things, but you're shifting your energetic state at the same time.
Yeah. And let's like bring people's awareness to that for a moment, that energetic state, right? Again, like I love how you said that. And I actually heard a coach, I think her name was Stacy Crown, mention that she stopped saying, I'm so busy. Because like, you know how people, how are you? I'm just busy.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's good. I'm busy. But like busy, nope, is like the enemy of so much of like peace and contentment and all things. So she changed it to just saying, my calendar is so full, right? It's like I have a full life. I have a lot going on. It's not, oh, I'm just busy. I'm running ragged, this frantic energy. But in Christian world, a lot of people hear energy and then they associate it with like woo or new
Yes.
age and stuff, and they don't understand the science about
Yeah.
that. So let's like take a second to say
Yes.
we have energy in our body. We have an electrical system in our body, right? That's why they could do an EKG on your heart. That's why they can do an EEG on your brain, right? These machines can pick up the electrical impulses going on in our body. So when you think a thought, it releases an equivalent chemical in your brain that's now going through your veins. right? So you think a fearful thought, it releases adrenaline. So now you start to feel fight and flight in your body, right? So now that's creating a chemical and an electromagnetic marker in your body, which is measurable.
And
Like
when
they scientists have measured the emotional frequency scale,
yeah,
and they have hooked people up and been set, like put them in a fearful state, put them in an anxious state, put them in an angry state, and then in hertz they've been able to measure the frequency that you're emitting out of your body, right? So that's why if I am feeling really not great and Trish and I are in the same room, she's going to feel that. I don't even have to say it. I could be saying like happy, whatever, but she's going to feel that vibe, that vibrational energy I'm holding in my body is low. So your thoughts create your feelings, combined create that energetic state in your body that can be felt about everybody around you, your spouse, your friends, your family, your clients, right? How you're showing up online. You're emitting, we are always communicating non-verbally with everybody around us.
and when you're in that toxic relationship, your body is in fight or flight. So that is the frequency that you are putting out.
Yeah.
And in that frequency, you're not going to see the results in your business.
No.
Your nervous system can't do it. Your nervous, and I actually, while I was in the relationship, so this is what really probed me into diving into this niche, because in the relationship, and it's being able to share now and share my experiences, my business wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I was doing all of the things, like showing up every day. I had the coaches, I was doing all of the things, and finally my coach said, she's like, if you had the clients right now that you are trying to call in, how would you feel? Overwhelmed. That was my response. I physically, mentally, and emotionally could not take on the clients because I was in a constant state of fight or flight.
Yeah.
I was in such a lower vibrational energy, I didn't have the capacity to do it. And that was such a big recognition piece for me, because I was doing all of the things and I was not seeing the results.
Yeah.
So just that alone, like for anyone watching in, if you are in a toxic relationship, because I know a lot of the people I speak to are in toxic relationships or have been in toxic relationships, and you're doing all of the things, you're focusing on all of the pieces, this could be that missing piece of actually focusing on your mindset and your thoughts. And even now, I'm 2 years out, my thoughts still are there.
Yeah.
I have friends who are years out, and it's still those limiting beliefs that are sometimes stuck in the subconscious that you don't even recognize are there. And it takes someone else pulling them out and saying, well, look, this is what I'm seeing. Does that resonate? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it shows up. You can't hide it. It shows up in your word choice, and how you're feeling internally affects all the decisions that you make.
Yeah.
So it's like all these little things that you're not even noticing, but it's all being driven by how you're thinking about yourself, how you're feeling, and these limiting beliefs and this limiting identity. It's like what's creating this outward projection
Yeah.
that, and again on that energetic topic, right? I always say, if I am like, if they're like, what kind of guy are you looking for, right? Like, let's put me back,
Yeah.
17 years ago before I met my husband. And I'm like, I want somebody who's like, confident and respectful, and he's funny and everybody loves him and he has an amazing job, and, he gets me and I can make him laugh. But I am like, I feel not good about my body. I just, I don't think I have, like, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, or, whatever thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
These two lines are never going to meet, right?
No.
And somebody that is up here energetically feeling adjusted, very emotionally adjusted, intuitively is very aware of somebody that's being down here. So even if you show up to that, match.com date and you think you're bringing your best self, inside you're actually this. And you don't understand why dates aren't going to 2 and 3 and whatever, but you don't understand the little behaviors, those idiosyncrasies you're carrying forward, the words that you're choosing are cluing this person in that this person's down here.
Yeah.
So if you want this, you need to go inside, you need to change the way you're thinking, change the way you're feeling, change what you're believing about yourself, and get up
Yeah.
here so that you can be that energetic match for that
Yeah.
person. But when you think back, and I'm sure you can do this, I did this with my ex, when I'm like, oh my gosh, back then I was feeling like this.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was up
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But now that I really see him for who he was down here too. And that's why we attracted each
Yeah.
other, because he felt like crap about himself, actually, and had to dominate and manipulate
I feel
somebody
hard.
else.
Yeah.
And somebody, a girl that's up here, he would never have been able to do that to. So, like, all of this stuff is wrapped up together.
Yeah.
You can't escape it.
Yeah. And it's a lot of times those little pieces. So narcissists love to go after strong women. So yeah, they are down here and we are up here. But their ego, and you know, it's like they fool themselves to fool everyone else, because their ego wants them to be at that same level,
Yeah.
but they bring you down and you don't even realize that it's happening, because for them it's a challenge to go after the strong women and bring them down to their level.
And then they really don't even want you when you're down at that
No,
level.
they don't, because they find fault in every single thing that you do. And you know, the second you put on a couple pounds, it's brought up that you've put on a couple pounds. And yeah, nothing was ever good enough. And all of these little pieces that I look back and I'm like, and I did after my first child, I was very, very self-conscious. Very self-conscious. And he knew that. And it was almost used, I'm not going to say used against me, because he would always say that he loved when I was pregnant. Like,
Yeah.
okay, but I don't love when I'm pregnant. So maybe have some understanding for that as well. But it was like a lot of the pieces that I said were used against me in the end. And it's that knocking you down to their level. So it's going in and doing, you know, like I said at the beginning, you are not stuck in who you are right now. Yes, we've all been through things. We've all gone through some sort of trauma, a past, an experience that has landed us to today and where we are. But from today moving forward, we can be self-aware and consciously make the changes that we desire to see in ourselves for who we want to be moving forward. We're not stuck in that past. We have today to make those decisions moving forward.
Yeah, I always like to say, like, you are under no obligation to be who you were 3 years ago, 3 weeks ago, or even 3 minutes ago,
Yeah.
right? You're allowed to change. You're allowed to be like, well, it bothers me now. You're allowed to claim that power back. Again, there is deep work that goes along with that,
Yeah.
right? And in my world, prayerful work.
Yeah.
It's not just the forcing of it with willpower, because that's going to run out.
Yeah.
You got to get to the crux of, in your
Yeah.
mind, when did I start to believe this about myself? When was the first occurrence of this? You know, and peel that back and be like, oh, because again, when you can reprocess it from a calm state, and you're like, yeah, I actually can look at that whole thing so differently.
Yeah.
You know, and as somebody who, like I said, I'm gonna have my 15th wedding anniversary, 15 happy years. We still act like the same people we were when we first started freaking dating. We can't even believe it's been 15 years. Like, uh, this work works.
Yeah.
And you can be so healed from it, right? Like, I have no emotional charge when I think about my ex, when I think about the crazy experience that I went through. It could be like a Lifetime movie. I have no ill will towards him. I've totally forgiven him in my heart.
Yeah.
Like, you can get to that place.
Yeah.
Um, and there are tools out there, and it doesn't have to take forever.
Nope.
It
I mean, I'm 2 years out, and my ex and I are getting along now better than we did when we were together. We have the kids. I keep our conversations to about the kids for the most part, but
Nice.
you get to decide how that works for you. A narcissist is a narcissist is a narcissist, but you can learn how to live with them in your life in a way that doesn't create an emotional charge. There's no reaction. And that's, I mean, I think for my piece of advice, the biggest takeaway from this, start paying attention to how you are reacting to the things in your life. And instead of reacting right away, take that step back, recognize the situation, and decide, how do I want to respond to this? Yeah. That was one of the first pieces that I implemented when I started realizing, hey, I'm not happy here. Let's start changing this.
Yeah, because what do they always say? Like, control is an illusion, and you can't change the other person as much as you want to. So you can only control your effort, your reaction, and your attitude.
Yeah.
So like that reaction piece is so massive because and you don't always have to react in the moment. You can be like, you know what, I need a minute for this.
Yeah.
Like, can we continue this conversation later? Because I actually need a minute, rather than allowing them to get you like
fired
so riled up. But getting back to like the limiting identities and the beliefs, once you get back to that truest, strongest level of yourself, you're just naturally not as reactive. You're so grounded in who you are that you become like non-reactive, and you can, from a very calm state, choose your words, choose how you want to respond, right? And when we're in that fight or flight all the time, like the amygdala in your brain is enlarged.
Yeah.
And you just naturally get amped up like so fast. Yeah. But you can calm that, you can shrink that, and there are tools that you can lean into to do that, so that you're not just so prone to go into like explosive reactivity all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, 100. I've heard even now everyone's like, you're so calm. Like, there's no reason to be anything but. I don't need to get worked. Your choices are your choices, not mine. And I'm not going to have something throw me off. I have enough pieces on my own that still come up. 2 days ago, I had an anxiety attack out of nowhere. So I still have my own pieces going on. And I haven't actually shared that on my content yet. But yeah, I was calm. I was watching TV. And I've actually started thinking back to, you know, what was going on in my head that triggered that anxiety attack, because I haven't had one in about 6 months.
Did you figure it out?
I did. I'm moving in 2 weeks, and there has been so much going on that even though I felt calm, I was relaxing, watching TV, just unwinding, there was still so much going on in the back of my mind that all of a sudden my heart was in my throat and I couldn't breathe. And being able to go back and, you know, then it's going back and, okay, this is the thoughts that were going on subconsciously, because you know everything that's happening. Is this ultimately going to affect me this way? No. And it's just reframing everything and reframing those thoughts, because anxiety, again, isn't real. It's those chemicals in your brain that have formed the pathways.
Yeah. And when you do mindset work, right, just like when you lean into faith, it's not like you're never going to have an anxiety attack. You're never going to have a bad day. But it's like you know the tools to fall back into. Yes. And even if you like, have a moment of a day, you're like, all right, I know how to reset. I know how I got there. I know how to reset and move forward. You become more and more emotionally resilient.
Yeah.
The longer you stick with the work, and you have to stick with it. Like we said in the beginning, it's like squats. You can't expect the squats you did 5 years ago to keep your butt like tight and right. Like
no,
you
I gotta do
constantly be
again
doing
too.
it.
But it's having the tools and knowing the tools. So for me, yes, I had an anxiety attack. Okay, let's look at what triggered it. But in the moment, I was, instead of it leading to a full-on panic attack, which is what used to happen, I was able to, I'm like, oh shit, I've got to breathe. I've got to get my heart out of my throat, because you feel like you can't breathe in that moment, and then it becomes a full-on panic attack. But I was able to bring myself back down and then look at what the hell just happened.
Yeah.
And it's having the tools and learning how to process these pieces and learning how to tap into the mindset piece that is so important to our growth for all of us.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't do it alone. So that's why we are here.
We're meant to do life together, you know,
We really
and I like cliches. I always use super cliches, but sometimes they're so illustrative, and it's like you can't read the label when you're inside the box. Sometimes you need that person sitting across from you who to be like, I see what's
yeah.
happening, you know?
That's, I always say, when you are so close to the problem, you can't see the problem. So having that outside perspective to come in just gives you that whole picture of, okay, this is what's going on. This is what we need to do to move forward.
Absolutely.
Well, I have loved this episode. Is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with?
No, just that, like, anything that you are in right now, you're not alone. You're not the only person that's going through it. There is support available to you. You have to be able to share about what you're going through first. And on the relationship tip, sometimes you're not actually sharing the depth of what the problem really is. And sometimes you're sharing it with the people who have been hearing it over and over and over again. So you're getting really biased information. So you got to step outside and be like, who else can I reach out to have this conversation with in an honest, true light? Um, so, I always like to say that. Oh, thank you, Britt. I see you down there. Uh, you know, mindset work, getting reconnected with your faith. To me, that is going to be the magic bullet to propel you forward.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode today. And thank you to everyone who joined in on today's episode. Don't forget to leave anything that you want to say about this conversation in the comments, and we will get back to you.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye. Thank you.